Hello Wolfpack, we're back here today on Bitcoin, and we're doing another update here on Bitcoin because obviously overnight in Australia at least, we've had this drop from around that region of 45.5k, which we were talking about yesterday, and yesterday we did a little video halfway through that drop, and right now we've actually touched just the very, very top of 41k and wicked right off of it, and we can look a bit closer on the 15-minute chart and see what's actually happened here on Bitcoin. We've had basically a step formation in which we've kind of just had this, plateau here, step down, plateau here, and a step down. It's actually a very common formation, and it happens quite a bit, where you see steps down without any real swings back to the upside, and so that's what we've been seeing here on Bitcoin, and it's undeniably quite bearish, right? And I just want to premise this video by saying that, I really don't think there's any possible route Bitcoin can take in order to recover fully from this without having further downside. This is very much a terrible drop, detrimental to the Bitcoin structure. I think the last time we really had a chance of forming a full recovery was actually up here at this double bottom formation just a few days ago. But now that that's gone, it's over, guys. I don't think we're in a bull market anymore. I haven't thought we were in a bull market since my original prediction up around the mid 50k region. And I've been bearish and cautious and selling coins and encouraging people to sell coins since the mid 60ks. And so, we've been prepared for this drop as a wolf pack. And we can only congratulate ourselves for that. But as for the future for Bitcoin here, within the next 6 to 12 months, it's just going by my original prediction. But as of right now, and we'll get into my prediction and analyzing that and how it's going further in a second. But what we will do on the daily chart is kind of look at a potential for a bounce off of this region, because what we've said the whole time, right, the entire time, is that. Sorry, just 1 second. I'll just take a sip of water so I can get this across. What we've said this entire time, guys, is that, we're probably going to either form a double bottom in this region here, or we're going to come down all the way to the 40k to 42k region, which we've actually just entered, which is this green box, right? And we're going to form a long-term head and shoulders pattern on Bitcoin. And that's what we're doing right now. We've just entered that region right now. That is what we're doing. We're forming a head and shoulders pattern. Now, do I think we'll bounce off this region? Yes, I do. I do think we'll see a bounce off of this region, and the reason being is because of, well, there's a few things, first of all, but it's because mainly of the volume profile and the historical price action that indicates the amount of support in this region. Well, going off the support first, this region has held a support and resistance on multiple occasions throughout the entirety of 2021, and now obviously this year as well. So that's one time there, one time there, one time there, one time there, one time there. So many touches here of this line. We saw a touch here and a touch here. It is the line, the critical line in the sand for Bitcoin for the past year, right? If I had to draw one line on the chart, it would be a line, in this green rectangle that I've drawn here. It would be that line that I draw on the chart. That's the most important region. When we're above that, we're typically very bullish. When we're below it, we're typically very bearish. And we'll look into that further in a second. But that's obviously one reason why you'd expect a bounce, right? Just because it's happened so much. But another reason is the fact that, well, we're actually in a crevice on the volume profile. The volume profile, I like to think of it, as I've said multiple times, I like to think of it like mountains, okay? When you're at the crevice of a mountain, which we're at now, it's very, very hard to move upwards either side, right? When you're in the peak of the mountain, like we were at 47k, we're at the peak here of the mountain, very easy to roll down that hill. We've rolled down the hill, it happened very quickly, and now we're at the crevice, right? We're in the bottom of the mountain, looking up both ways. Is a big mountain, a hard area of resistance and support in both directions. And so since we've seen a long downwards trend for a very lengthy period of time, going on 2 months now, or actually on 2 months, we could assume that right now, and given the fact that this is a major area of support, this is going to be a region in which we'll see a bounce on Bitcoin. I strongly believe we'll be seeing a bounce in this region on Bitcoin. However, that belief is not strong enough for me to actually take any long positions or take any buying positions on Bitcoin here. I need to see it materialize a little bit first. Where do I think the bounce could take us? Okay, I would assume, just based off the height of this last shoulder here, it would take us to 53k. I think that's the best case scenario. However, I would say that potentially it could take us a little bit lower than that region because of the bull market support band, right? The bull market support band is currently sitting at 53k and just below it. So my logical kind of thought process would be, hey, we'd come up to the bull market support band, reject off of it wherever it may be, might be slightly under 53k, might be at 48k, who knows, and then we'll come back down. But ultimately, regardless of what happens in this region, regardless of what happens off of this support zone, I think that it's a bounce zone that will ultimately lead to a failure, okay? Throughout the entire history of Bitcoin, we've had these dead cat bounces after all-time highs, okay? We can look at 2017 just to get you a little example of what's going on here. In 2017, we saw, amazingly large drops and then dead cat bounces on the way down, bounce again on the way down, bounce, ultimately, it's like the way I like to think of it, right, is it's like a tennis ball that you drop on the floor, right? It's not going to flatten out on the surface straight away. It's going to bounce, and each bounce is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller until the bottom is in and it's surfaced on the floor, right? It's not bouncing anymore. And that's the same way you'd like to think of the cryptocurrency market. And the way that we've been dropping right now for 2 straight months from 68k all the way to 40k, right? Well, that's a drop of what? That's a drop of 40%, a little bit more than 40%. That's obviously very unsustainable, right? We're going to see a bounce at some point, and I think this bounce is going to come in this region here. As I said, though, and I'll say it again, I'm not really betting on it happening. I don't really care too much about missing the opportunity for a long here. I think that it's likely, but I'd rather just wait because I know what the trend is now for Bitcoin. I'm very well aware of what the trend is. The trend is downwards, and so I'm very willing to wait until we bottom out in the region in which I think we're going to be bottoming out. One thing that is worth noting on Bitcoin is the fact that we're coming in for a death cross, right? Which is where this red line, the 50 SMA, crosses the 200 SMA. Historically, death crosses have actually led to rapid depreciations, but there have been times, such as in this June to July period, where it actually led to a rally. Right, shortly after, it didn't really have much effect on Bitcoin. And so, I think that we need to avoid this time taking too much time, concerning about the death cross, because it's very easily misleading, and it's used by the manipulators as a reverse psychology event. And so the death cross could actually be the catalyst to a dead cat bounce here in the head and shoulders pattern. So that's something worth noting as well. Even though the name is very misleading, the name makes you think it's going to go to zero, right? Death cross. But when we see that happening, we could actually see the start of this bounce here before heading downwards further. As for the weekly chart, and we'll look into this just one second. As for the weekly chart on Bitcoin, sorry about that, we have this major area of support here on the weekly, which is this green rectangle here. So this is the same rectangle that I've kind of labeled out here on the daily chart. However, what's interesting about this rectangle on the weekly chart is that every single time we close within this triangle, this rectangle here, close within it, we end up actually continuing the trend from where we came, right? So you'll notice that when we actually kind of wick off of it, we stay below it, wick off, it's very easy. But as soon as we get a close within this box, like we saw here in July, right? And like we saw here in February, we actually closed straight above it. And like we saw here in May, the trend continues through the box. And so it is a very interesting region. If, something happens here on Bitcoin and partially what I'm expecting within the next 2 days, which is when the weekly candle closes, right? Is we come back up and we maintain support at the 42.5k region, and we close the weekly candle above 42.5k, I would expect that head and shoulders pattern to play out. However, if we close within or below 42.5k, I would expect us to just drop straight through. And from that region, the next major area of support would obviously be that 30k region, right? Which I'm going to label out here, around that 28k to 30k region. So let me just repeat that again. If we close this weekly candle above 42.5k, right, which is where this box is, I would expect the head and shoulders pattern to ensue, right? If we close below 42.5k, the next logical step for Bitcoin, in my opinion, would be 30k within the next matter of months, right? But yeah, I would expect Bitcoin to close above on this weekly candle. However, I'm not super confident, hence why I'm not willing to actually bet on it happening. What I am willing to bet on happening, though, is the fact that, the 50-week SMA in correlation to the 200-week SMA is telling us a very grim story that I've been preaching about for almost months now on Bitcoin. I wouldn't say it's months, but almost a couple of months here on Bitcoin now, since November. And that is that if we lose the weekly candle, right, if we lose the 50-week SMA, which is this red line here, we close below it convincingly, which right now we're quite literally very convincingly below it, right? The next logical step for Bitcoin is the green line here, which is the 200-week SMA within about a year year. And we'll be making a video at some point in the next few days to discuss when exactly that's going to happen. But if I had to give you a very rough timeline, it would be any time in Q4 2022, right? So Q4 this year, I think that Bitcoin is going to bottom out on the 200-week SMA. Ultimately, the time frame doesn't really matter. The structure suggests that it's going to happen. So if it happens next month, it happens at the end of the year. That's not the point. The point is it's probably going to happen. Where do I think the 200-week SMA would be? Well, if it happens next month, it's going to be in this region here at around 20K. But if it happens the end of the year, it could be 25K, 30K, somewhere in that region. But ultimately, right now, for me personally, I think the trend is very well confirmed. I think that we're heading downwards to this 200-week SMA. Any bounce we see before that point will be a distraction. And the 200-week SMA, it is worth noting, is an area in which Bitcoin has never actually closed a weekly candle below. And so it is obviously the best area to accumulate Bitcoin that you will ever get, right? We've literally never closed a weekly candle below the 200-week SMA, ever. Not once in the whole history of Bitcoin since since the charting existed, since it actually came onto the charts here in 2014. Every single time we go to the 200-week SMA, we end up staying above it. We wick below it occasionally, but we never close below that region. And so when we do inevitably come down to this region, right, whether it be, whenever it would be this year, I think it is going to be this year though, that is going to be a place in which I would be personally going all in, right? Because that is investing with the trend until it ends to the peak, right? If it's never gone below that before, that's going to be a good idea to try and get some Bitcoin in that region. And I'm very excited for that to happen. But as of right now, the critical areas we need to be watching are, this green box here between around 40K and 42.5K, especially on the weekly chart, right? Again, if we close below 42.5K, I'd expect us to be at 30K within a matter of months, or a couple months probably. If we close above 42.5K, I'd expect a bounce, maximum 53K, and then descending downwards to that 30K region regardless within a matter of maybe before maybe May or July or June or something like that, right? But we'll look into timeframes more closely in the videos to come. We've got lots of time to kind of get our data together, get our maths together. And I want to say, guys, I've noticed a pretty clear decline in viewership already in this drop. And for those of you who are still watching, you've probably outlasted at least half of the people in the crypto market here. Congratulations, right? Because no one in this cryptocurrency market made money by running away when the market looks bad, right? This is the time in which you want to be looking at Bitcoin, looking at altcoins, looking at everything, getting yourself together, studying the fundamentals, right? You want to get yourself prepared for the next bullish phase in the market, because what I will say is that we didn't see a typical bull market. So it's not guaranteed that we're going to see a typical bear market, right? There is, a considerable chance that the 3-year bear market is very well over for Bitcoin. And so, you might be waiting, at least, 6 months minimum for buying back into that bottom. But if you use that time to educate yourself, if you use that time to stay on top of the chart, stay on top of everything, you could be setting yourself up to, never work another day in your life within a matter of years. And I can tell you that for a fact. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed. I'll be here, not going anywhere, and I'll catch you in the next one.